Your guiding light, a man, a legend, a way of life, a household name in all four corners of the world. Rush Limbaugh, and yet another excursion into broadcast excellence. All right, moving on here, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get back to Chuck Todd and his piece on the Rob Porter situation, but I just basically wanted to establish my, shall we say, paradigm on this. As I'm sorry, I'm not going to get sucked in to the drive-by narrative on this. There's something else happening out there that, to me, attention needs to be focused on, and people need to be made aware of it. Something very quietly is happening out there. It's not being touted. And it's a little bothersome that it isn't being touted. The Democrats are showing remarkable discipline here in not touting what is very quietly happening out there. And what is very quietly happening out there is that the Democrats are winning elections. They have recently begun to win elections. They are winning special elections. They are winning local and state elections. And they're not shouting about it. They're not being loud and boisterous and celebratory at all. They won another one. And the last 5 or 6 of these elections that they have won, one was in Missouri, they're flipping Republican seats. The election they won yesterday was in a district that Trump won by 8 percentage points in 2016. This has happened about 15, 16 times in the last 6 months, that the Democrats have won elections and in many of them have flipped seats occupied by Republicans. This is not anything to do with the resignations from Congress of all these Republican committee chairmen. That's another story itself. The Democrats and the drive-bys are not doing their Tarzan route of pounding their chests and say, look at us. It's happening under the radar. And for them, I'm telling you, it requires a lot of discipline to stay silent while this happens, because you know they want to brag about it, and you know that they want to point to it. The Democrat voter base, the quote-unquote resistance voter base, it is very motivated. They are fueled by raw hatred, combined with paranoid disappointment and inexplicable rage. And these very motivated, fueled by hatred, filled with rage, Democrat voters are getting a ton of money to help them in local campaigns. And it's not being reported much because they're trying to keep this on the down low. For the very reason that it's happening. You don't know. Except those of you who live and are voting in these elections, and you know the results, but outside the precinct, per se, there's hardly any news about this. And even when there is, it's not reflected as important. It's just being reported as perfunctory, and it's just another news story today. And the Democrat won an election, flipped a Republican seat, and they let it go. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, ladies and gentlemen, there is no way that any Democrat should be winning any election now. There is no way under the sun the Democrats ought to be winning a single election. With the economy alone, with the tax cuts alone, there is no reason for the Democrats to be winning any elections. And yet they are all of a sudden. Through most of last year, they were losing elections left and right, just like they were from 2010 on. This is a massive, and it's apparently to date, very successful grassroots effort that is being funded by George Soros, primarily, but there are others. This, I think, if you want to know the truth, is Russian meddling. Russian socialist worldwide meddling. This is Russian interference in our elections. And yesterday we had all these intelligence chiefs, and they were all testifying, and they all assured us that, oh yeah, the Russians interfered and they're going to keep interfering. I don't think that is news, ladies and gentlemen. The Russians interfering in America, the Russians interfering in elections, it's old news. You only think it's new news because they've only started reporting it since they tried to make it look like it helped Trump. The Russians have succeeded in taking over I don't know how many faculty lounges at major American institutions of so-called higher learning. These are avowed socialists, proudly public about it. You go onto any college campus, ask the students, the millennials, 70% proudly say they're socialist. They don't know what it means. They haven't been taught the actual definition of socialism. To them, socialism is simply everybody caring about everybody and everybody being treated equally with no discrimination and total sustainability. That's what it is to them. And, of course, the government's the giant referee, making sure that people mistreated are taken care of, and the people doing the mistreating are punished. But economic, they haven't the slightest idea what it means. And this effort is not new, and it is being funded here by George Soros and many others. I can't conclusively prove that there's election fraud or cheating going on, but with these people involved and with the socialist intervention here, and make no mistake, the Soviet Union did its level best to influence life in America in every walk, every school, every church. The attack, the assault on religion in this country today has roots in communism. In communism, there is no God other than the state. There is no religion other than the party. And any threat, any competitor has got to be destroyed. Christianity is on the chopping block. This is Soviet/Russian interference, and it's happening in spades. Just recently, Harvard University accepted an offering of official papers from none other than Angela Davis. Now, I realize that many of you in this audience might be a bit young to know who Angela Davis was. Students for Democrat Society, a well-known African-American activist and an avowed communist. And Harvard has proudly accepted her papers and is proud to be the repository for her papers. She has run for office in the United States under the Communist Party USA. And one of the things that has been proven in her papers is that the Communist Party USA was entirely funded and created by the Soviet Union. So all of this panic talk about Russian interference in our elections, how about Russian interference in our country at large? It's been happening all of my life and before that. Bexar County, Texas, fourth most populous county. It includes San Antonio. Unseating the incumbent, Nicholas LaHood, the district attorney, would be a key victory for George Soros, who has been quietly investing in district attorney races all over the country. as a way to reshape the country's criminal justice policies from the ground up. George Soros spent more than $9 million on local district attorneys' races around the country from 2015 to 2017. This is good old-fashioned grassroots. All politics is local politicking. This is election insurance. You get your buddies on the courts and in the criminal justice system, and that's insurance against losing elections. Bexar County, Texas, George Soros is trying and succeeding in determining who wins the DA race. Can you imagine what he's doing in congressional races and statewide legislative races? The Daily Caller has a story about this flooding that is happening in Bexar County, Texas. They might pronounce it Bexar, I'm not sure. Soros has spent just under $70,000 backing a primary challenge to the current district attorney, Nicholas LaHood. $70,000, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. This is a county DA's race. These people spend $1,500 on their campaigns. $70,000, according to campaign finance documents. LaHood's a Democrat, don't misunderstand, but this guy opposes sanctuary cities. He supports Texas Governor Greg Abbott's crackdown on cities that defy federal immigration laws. So even though he's a Democrat, he's got to go. George Soros is targeting any elected official that is opposed to immigration reform, opposed to sanctuary cities, and he's funding their opponents. One of the mailers attacking the incumbent DA, Nicholas LaHood, accuses him of being a bigot, a racist, and Islamophobic, and it's both in English and Spanish. LaHood fought back by displaying the mailer in one of his own campaign ads and accused Soros of trying to buy his seat. Point is, they're winning elections, and it's happening very quietly, and nobody is singing songs of joy about it, so people aren't alarmed. But with all of the money the Republican National Committee is raising, compared to the practically zil the Democrat National Committee is raising, this ought not be happening. There ought not be any Democrat winning significant elections right now, not in the slightest. And yet it's happening. I thought you needed to know. Got to take a quick time out. We'll be back after this. Don't go away. All right, a couple of stories here to illustrate why I'm a little ticked off about this. This need not be happening. And I hope that there's not a whole lot of reliance. Trump's going to handle it. Trump will do it. Nothing replaces grassroots efforts in terms of registering and getting voters out, and especially in this climate where we've got a rebounding economy like we haven't seen since the 1980s, folks. Some might say we saw vestiges of it for periods of time in the 1990s. Fine, if you want to use that. It's been a long time. Massive improvements, great changes taken. Democrats ought not be winning a single thing out there, and particularly on the area of immigration and sanctuary cities and violating federal law. And yet they are. Here's backup from a story we had yesterday on the Morning Consult poll. Republicans have now overtaken Democrats on the generic congressional ballot for the first time since last April. Do you remember in December the drive-bys basically unable to contain themselves with glee and joy because the Democrats were ahead in the generic ballot plus 15. And that went a long way toward convincing them that they had already won the 2018 midterms. Plus 15 in the generic ballot. It was seen as an insurmountable lead. It was portrayed as a referendum on Trump. And the drive-bys are running around telling everybody, you see this generic ballot, people realize they've screwed up. People realize they made a mistake voting for Trump. People want to take a chance and take that vote back. People can't win. That's how the media was portraying it. And since the beginning of January, when this tax cut stuff talk started. The generic ballot has begun to improve ever so slowly for the Republicans. In the last 2 weeks, it has taken off. And that entire 15-point lead the Democrats had is gone. And now the Republicans are leading in the generic ballot. 39% preferring Republicans, 38% preferring Democrats. Uncertainty is high, 23%, but that, of course, comes down once you put names on the ballot. And it no longer becomes generic. And the shock poll follows a warning from Democrat Super PAC Priorities USA that Democratic focus on day-to-day news involving Trump is winnowing, meaning it's eating away at their advantages. And here is that story. McClatchy had the story. Democrats hitting red alert over Trump polling. And it's all true. The Morning Consult poll on the generic ballot is true. Chuck Schumer has been out there warning Democrats that Trump hatred and Trump opposition is not enough to win 2018 like they've all thought it would be. And now a big-time Democrat liberal PAC is alarmed. And against that, out there in these little DA races and other places, Democrats are winning elections. And the Democrats are being very quiet about it. These two things don't go together. The Democrats don't need to be winning elections right now. So somebody needs to get their butt in gear, and that money that has been donated needs to be put to good use. This is the time the Democrats need to be hammered and beaten and defeated continually at every opportunity there is. This is not the time to let up on the gas, start making assumptions that things are in the bag or in the tank. And I know there's still some never-Trumpers in the Republican apparatus nationally, but still no excuse for this. I have to make a correction. This embarrasses me. I've been pronouncing the name of this county in Texas, Bexar, and it's Bear. It's Spanish. The X is silent in Spanish. I should have known that. It actually be phonetically... if it were pronounce it Espanol, Bejar. But they just combined it to Bear County down there. So Bexar is pronounced Bear. And I should have figured it out. It just ticks me off. Well, because when I'm told what the pronunciation is and I look at it, yeah, it makes total sense. And I just hate making goofball mistakes when I could have figured that out on my own. How many people do you think would run into the phone shouting at the radio, "No rush, it's Bear, it's Bear"? And I should have saved them all the aggravation, but I will figure it out myself. The saga continues. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. And back to the phones. Kathy in Parker, Arizona. I'm glad you waited. Great to have you here. Hi.
Oh, it's great to be on, Rush. Thank you so much. This is awesome. This is awesome. I just want to let you know I've been listening to you on and off for the last 20 years or so, and I just have to thank you for keeping us so informed, especially the one that you just talked about today. I didn't realize that Democrats were quietly winning local elections.
They are.
That definitely concerns me.
And they're doing a good job of keeping it on the down low, which means Republicans are not alarmed about it. I don't even know what's happening other than in the areas where the elections are taking place. The national Democrats are not crowing about it. They're not bragging about it. They're not talking about it. The drive-by media is not doing stories about it except local drive-bys. And that's where you find these stories. And if there is any reference to them in a national story, it's very tiny. It's almost like a purposeful, strategic effort here or idea to downplay these election results.
Yeah, because it throws us off. And even though I'm in a very, very small town, I try to keep my my eyes on what's going on in our local elections and with our local people. And I just don't understand how people can look at this economy and look at everything that is happening that wouldn't be happening under a Democrat president.
You have to find out what media they're watching. And I'm telling you, if all they watch is what we call the drive-by media, they don't know the country you know. They don't know the Donald Trump. They don't know the economy that you're being told. They think these tax cuts are going to be tax increases. That's what their media told them. And even when they get a tax cut, they're not going to realize it's for everybody. They're going to think they lucked out, and they're going to think most of their neighbors are getting tax increases. They're being misinformed, lied to, and you name it. And if they don't access anything other than mainstream media, they don't know what you know. And what they think they know is that Trump is rotten, Trump colluded with Russia, the election was illegitimate. You'd be amazed at the number of people who still believe this. You can't relate to it because you know it's absolutely absurd, and it's been demonstrated to be absurd and manufactured and made up. But you only know that because one half of the media is all it's telling you. Do you realize that the people you're talking about don't even know who Fusion GPS is? They probably don't know the name Christopher Steele. And all they know is that there was a dossier where Trump took a leak on a bed that Obama slept in. They believe it. That's what we're up against here. And it's the same thing with college-age students. This is the kind of stuff they're taught, and even before they get to college. So that is that's why I've said continually that it's a mistake to reach across the aisle and try to compromise or find common ground, because it isn't there. They need to be defeated. I don't care where leftists are, where Democrats are, they need to be defeated. Now, some of these local elections, like the one in Bexar County in Texas, that's a district attorney's race. People that, well, Rush, what does that matter? You can't count that as a loss. You kidding? You know, the old saw about all politics being local. A DA determines who gets charged and who doesn't, and it's an elective political office. You know, the closer politics gets to the population, the more powerful it is and the more influential it is. That's why grassroots politics is so important. You get up the DA election, and you get into town council, mayor, all these things. The Democrats, from 2010 on, lost over 1,200 seats. And it wasn't just in the U.S. Congress and state houses. It was exactly these kinds of races. And they matter, particularly when you add them all up, when they become cumulative. And they do matter. It should not be happening. There's no reason for it to happen, given the ammunition the Republicans have and the resources. Here's Dave in Colorado Springs. You're next. It's great to have you, sir. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, Rush! It is such an honor.
Thank you.
You are such a great American. You do. I mean, it's just off the charts. But
thank you very much.
Mr. Sternly said to get right to my point, so I'll do that. I agree with all your stuff on the Democrats winning the elections locally, and I think that's part of their strategy, is to start low and start small and get going. But I think there's two other factors that really play into that. At least here in Colorado, some of the candidates that the Republicans are putting forward are just terrible. Oh, they're nice people, and they have one or two nice ideas, but they're not going to win. For instance, our governor is going to be another Democrat. He's just any of the 5 or 10 candidates that we have running. They're nice people, but they're not going to win. None of them are charismatic and get there. So we need better candidates. Second thing is...
Oh, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Who's in charge of that? Okay. Who's in charge of who decides who's going to run? What if your Republicans in your governor race out there? I mean, they all want to run. Did somebody pick these people to run? Is somebody telling the others not to run in favor of one? I mean, who's in charge of this?
There are some people that just decide to run, and then there's other people that the Colorado GOP pick or try to select.
Right. So what do you do about the people outside the GOP who just decide they want to run?
Well, you have to let them run. But as people, and I go to the state and county assemblies and things like that.
But what if they're the duds that you're talking about? What if they're the duds that you're talking about?
We have to hold our nose and vote for the one that might be the best. It's a really tough situation. But we do get into situations where, like McConnell, who I really don't like, won't support senatorial candidates. And we had Darrell Glenn lose the election because of that. He only lost by 3%. So, we definitely need better candidates. But I think the second point is important too, is that Trump had a voter commission on voter fraud, and he was doing that and trying to get the secretaries of state to look at that. I still think there's a lot of voter fraud out there that's not being investigated, reported, et cetera. And I think that's one of the reasons why, perhaps even the main reason why the Democrats are so mad that crooked Hillary lost, is because they thought they had enough fraudulent votes to win. And so she didn't go to some of the states. And I think we really need to be investigating.
You think that crooked Hillary didn't go to those states because she thought they had the elections in those states taken care of? They had it rigged.
Yes. I think that's definitely a case. And I haven't really heard too many people talk about it. I know you've kind of brushed on the edge of it.
Well, I don't think she could have gotten there if she'd have wanted to. She could barely stand up for long enough to get to the bus for the 9/11 memorial.
Well, that's definitely true.
I had to give her a 2-week nap to get ready for one of the debates.
Well, thank God she didn't go there, and we won, and Trump is in. But we still have a tremendous amount of work to do.
Well, look, your point about candidates is a good point, because there still is a division in the Republican Party: establishment versus outsider, establishment versus Tea Party. The Tea Party, by the way, maintains they haven't gone anywhere. Just because this budget stuff has had the Tea Party say, hey, we're still here, and we're still there, and we're still working. The candidate selection process, it depends on the party's strength from state to state. But in many cases, the party will anoint a candidate and do everything they can to keep opponents from running in primaries. And then, of course, the outsiders will come along and try to primary an incumbent who has been I think it illustrates the continuing fractured status of the Republican Party that is going to have to be dealt with.